Hey, it's Mazzy here, and these are our favorite live shows, concerts that we attended, the 10 of them in 1970s. And I'm here with my buddy Jazz Shit Brooks. Those of you who have watched our show, he probably hates that by now, but yeah, okay, Brooks, it's Brooks. So here's here's what we're doing. We both lived in San Francisco during the 70s. I did the entire time. Brooks moved in 74, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We both went to San Francisco State. For a while, we worked at the same record store. We were college roommates. We were inseparable. We were roommates for about almost 4 years, from 74-ish to 78, give or take.
Yeah.
Great years. Anyway, we decided to pick 10 shows that we saw, our favorite 10 shows, pretty much all in San Francisco. Maybe you might have some down in Santa Barbara. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I do.
We're going to go back and forth on that. And if we decide, or if we come up with one that we both attended, because Brooks and I went through a handful of shows together, we'll kind of jump in and discuss that. So these are shows that we both saw. Now, we're not doing any jazz. We may do a future jazz show. So there's no jazz shows because there's so many great concerts. And I decided when I was researching this, I'm going to do a future edition of something like my favorite 50, 70 shows. Because there's a lot I left off. I'm sure you too. We left off here because it was a golden era in the Bay Area to see live music for cheap and these bands in their heyday for the most part. So we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to show some records and Brooks is going to probably show some CDs that the band was touring. If it's a studio album, it's a studio album. The band may have been touring around that time. If there's a live album component, even if it came out years later or obviously after the fact, I may share that just as a point of visual reference. And Brooks, unlike me, I think he keeps a journal of every show, and you have ticket stubs, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, good.
That is correct. And I have that journal I kept all the way through the early 90s. So hundreds and hundreds of shows. Yeah.
Hundreds of shows.
I saw about 250 in the 70s. So this was not an easy, and that includes jazz. But
we were, Brooks and I talk about this a lot, and I've talked about it on my channel here. We were the right age, the right place at the right time to see all this great music at reasonable prices. It's not like, I go to shows now, and it's funny, Brooks is my only friend that I've known for all these years that goes to see new music. Brooks and I, when we hang out together, we'll go to clubs and see new bands or, all bands coming through where you can see for $10, $20, $40.
Yeah, and it's great.
If there's three bands and two of them are terrible, you don't feel ripped off. It's kind of like, do I need to spend another $300 to see Bruce Springsteen again or someone like that? So, not against Bruce Springsteen, but anything like that, and I've done it. I do it occasionally. That's for another day. So why don't Brooks is going to start. I'm going to jump right in and let's have a conversation. 10, our favorite 10 live shows of the 1970s.
Okay. Well, I'll start, and I think we're both going to do this a little bit of sort of cheating on some dates and what exactly is the best show. As
cheating is the middle name of my channel here.
Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, I saw roughly 250 shows during that period of time. So you can imagine that's difficult to come down to the best shows. And there were a number of acts that I saw multiple times. So that, I was particularly liked at that period. And so to pick one show out of, 3 or 4 or 5 concerts is hard too. So, but what I'm going to do first is Jimi Hendrix in Ventura. And this was 1970.
Damn you.
Have the poster. And this is from that show. This was at the Ventura County Fairgrounds, which was this funky fairgrounds in the city of Ventura, which, if you don't know, is in Southern California, a beach town, just down the coast from Santa Barbara. And this show is June 21st, 1970. So it was towards the end of his life. The show itself, I recall going down there from Santa Barbara, where I grew up, with some friends. And for some reason, we didn't buy tickets because we decided we were going to try to crash the show or sneak in or whatever. And then we got there and it just wasn't happening for that. They had good security, but eventually there were so many people trying to sneak in. They finally, I think after the show started, this particular show had, see, it was Jimi, Ball and Jack, and Grin at the bottom of the
Lofgren.
Yeah, and so, but unfortunately, by the time we got in, Grin had finished, and I think we caught like half of the Ball and Jack show. And then Jimi came on, and this was sort of this was a show that when I researched some of his, I'm a big Jimi Hendrix fan, so let's get by that. It was not a good show, and I remember that he wasn't particularly on that show, and I think he had lots of technical problems. As I said, this place was near the beach. I think they had like the salt air was screwing up, the electronics of his amp, or I don't know what, but I have to put it in, at any rate. Like I say, I have to put it in because it's Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, and it was actually the second time I saw him. I did see him 2 years before that in a gymnasium at University of California, Santa Barbara, which,
wow.
If I remembered it better, I'm sure it was a great show. But
Jimi Hendrix is one of the major artists that I regret not having seen.
And these are the tickets for the two different shows I saw. The bottom one was the one. Yeah, I know. Actually, the ticket for this show, I think I paid $1 for it. I think I wrote it on the ticket because they just wanted to stop the hassle of everyone trying to sneak in. So that's it on that one.
Wow. Well, I'm not going in any particular order, but one of the venues that we both went to quite a bit in San Francisco that might be in the top 3 venues that I've seen the most music in my life, and that's Winterland. Winterland was an old large building that my parents used to take me to see the Ice Capades or the Ice Follies, a big skating. Yeah.
I didn't know you went there pre-music.
Just a couple times we went to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Graham took it over for certain shows that were that needed to be larger than the Fillmore or Fillmore West. So he started having shows there as early as I think 68, some New Year's Eve shows, and I went there countless times. And when the first time I went there, I think was in 1972, maybe I went earlier, but in 72, in September 72, this is a time when you walk in, the stage would be on the right, so it would be a longer setup. About a year later, the stage is when you walked into the back, so it was more a longer kind of place, and that's the way it was for the rest of its tenure. And I think in 1978 is when they closed it down, and then it was eventually torn down, apartments built. But one of the bands that I love is Pink Floyd, and this album had come out prior to Pink Floyd playing at Winterland in September 1972, September 23rd, 1972. I'd been a Pink Floyd fan. Metal is one of my favorite albums. I did get the second Pink Floyd album, but I was not really into them as a Syd Barrett band. And I know that's a lot of people are, it's a whole different band, really. I like their spaciness. But 1972, I had just, I had started college in February at San Francisco State, where Brooks and I both ended up meeting or being in the broadcasting, BCA, Broadcasting Communication Arts, kind of one of those bullshit majors. Yeah. And, but this was one of the greatest concerts, singing Pink Floyd. Now, Winterland holds about just under 5,000 people. So it's not a huge venue, but compared to the Fillmore and those kind of places, it is. So, but what's amazing about that show, they previewed the entire Dark Side of the Moon. Now, of course, I didn't know what it was. I heard it, I loved it, but sometimes you always want to hear the old songs. But at that time, the experimental stuff was great. We didn't know any of this music. This album wouldn't come out till around, I can't think, April, May or so of 1973. So 5-6 months before this album came out, I heard the entire album. Of course, we know what happened here, right? Where this album went. So fantastic show, and I loved it.
Wow. Well, that's a band I wish I had seen too. I was never a big Pink Floyd fan, but I'm sure their shows were well worth seeing. And
I also saw the Animals and the Wall tour.
Oh wow!
Okay. I'll got to mention one thing too. I don't know if it's going to be part of any of the shows we show here. We were lucky enough to work in the record business from 74-ish to 78, 9, whatever. We got a lot of free tickets to shows, and we got a lot of free tickets to shows of unknown artists, some of which we've never heard of since, and some have become extremely large, and famous. Which I think I have a couple here, and it was just a great time for that. So,
Yeah, actually, as far as that goes, and I'm not going to talk about it, or this isn't part of my list for today, but getting tickets for Kiss at the Cow Palace in like 78 or something.
We got them from Vernon. I went to that too. I don't remember us going together.
No, I don't think so. I think I went with somebody else at record.
Well, maybe it was 78. Maybe it was after 78. Yeah. Our good friend Vernon, who was a manager of the store we worked at early on, ended up working for Polygram, and he gave me all the Kiss solo records.
Oh, right. Yeah, I got those.
All the 4 solo records that they all have the makeup on and everything. And I was never a Kiss fan, but I went to see Kiss, and I went to see Bay City Rollers with them too. So that was keep talking.
Yeah, that was the thing too. I didn't, I wasn't really into Kiss, but I thought, well, it'll be a show. That's for sure.
Keep going.
It'll be a show, that's for sure. And Cheap Trick opened, and they were good for sure. But I had actually seen Cheap Trick probably 2 years before that on their first tour at a small club in San Francisco called Wolfgang's, where I think both of us saw a ton of shows at Wolfgang's, probably either with free tickets for somebody we didn't know, or just to go see this particular late 70s and the first part of the 80s.
I got one later.
So if we do an 80s one, I got a lot of groups from Wolfgang's in that show.
I got one coming up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Move on. I got a list here, just roughly to keep this up. Okay. Another is Jethro Tull, which I became a huge fan of very early. In fact, on their first tour, I saw in Santa Barbara, it was Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull.
You got better visuals than I do.
Together. Well, I don't have a lot of these, but I have a few. And of course, nobody really knew a lot about either band at that point. I don't know if I knew about Jethro Tull at all on this, and I think I had only had the first Zeppelin album. So went to that show, saw Tull. I think I must have instantly fallen in love with them, because for maybe not 10 years, this was what, 69, I think. Anyway, after that, I saw every tour of theirs through, I think, Passion Play. So that would be 74, something like that. So I think I saw them like every year for those years. But one that particularly sticks out in my mind was 71? And it was right at the time I was graduating high school. I'm dating myself here. And two of my friends and I decided, instead of going to some graduation ceremonies that were happening right at that time from high school, we wanted to go see Jethro Tull. So we blew off high school graduation events that were going on and went down to see them from Santa Barbara to the Inglewood Forum. And that was actually the Aqua Lung tour. And that was a great show. And we even got a motel nearby.
Ooh.
Stayed overnight because,
you weren't like sleeping on a park bench.
Yeah, right. good one. No,
I'm here all day. Night.
So anyway, this particular version of Aqua Lung is the 40th anniversary part of the remixed and remastered Steven Wilson series. And I think I have all of these too through Passion Play.
Those have gone up in price and value.
Yeah, I've looked, Discogs, they're like, it's crazy. It's like,
I don't have any of those.
It's like $150 to $250 for this stuff.
I just have the XTC Steven Wilson. stuff.
Oh yeah, I have those. Well, I have one of those, and I have the Dukes of the Stratosphere. Yeah. So, yeah. So, saw Jethro Tull, I don't know, 6-7 times or something like that in that period of time. Or maybe
I did not include them. I did not include them, but I only saw them. I think I might have. I saw them twice. Once at Winterland, and once at the Open Coliseum around 75 or 6, opening up for ELO.
Oh wow! And actually, I doesn't anyway. I have tickets for. I still have tickets from Jethro Tull shows too, from that period of time, including the. This is the Led Zeppelin Jethro Tull ticket.
Wow.
And then some other ticket stubs where I kind of had to write on it because Bass Tickets or Ticketmaster or whatever it was doesn't really give you
spoiler alert. I saw Led Zeppelin 3 times in the 70s, and they're not in my 10 here.
Oh,
that's why I need to do an expanded one on my own. So those of you who watch, I'll do one eventually, but that's not.
Yeah, here. I left stuff off just because you can't.
Yeah, God, you start thinking, oh my God, there's this and there's that.
Yeah. We could do another one at some point, but anyway, or not.
All right, I'm sticking with Winterlands for a moment, and I'm just going 2 months after that Pink Floyd. This is how great it was. People coming through.
Yeah. I was noticing that when I was looking at the list that I'd see like a great show on Saturday night or one show, and then like Tuesday there was another show I saw that was equally great, and then Friday I saw another one. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I was probably going to 10 shows a month.
Yeah,
sometimes more. When we were in the business more early on, like this is 72 still. A lot of shows. Think about anyway. November, Winterland, 1970. I had gotten a record. I heard a record. Okay, I'm going to spoil it already, or just tell you, it's David Bowie. I heard on the radio, Keystone radio played Starman. That was the first David Bowie song I remember hearing. I hadn't heard Hunky Dory or Man of Soul World. This is the first Bowie album I bought. I bought this record, and I don't remember all the timeline, but I had to go see it. And I went with these guys from San Francisco State who were kind of newer friends, because I had my old friends, this guy named John Brorson, who him and I made some movies together and did some arty shit. Before I was just in the broadcasting department at the beginning. He wasn't in that. But we went to see David Bowie at Winterland. Winterland again holds, just under 5,000 people. 500 people showed up. I read years later, Bowie was pissed. He said he wouldn't come to San Francisco again. Of course, I also saw him at the Cow Palace at the Thin White Duke tour, the station to station tour. But this was an amazing show. 500 people showed up. And I think this was, the irony was, and I should have pulled that album. There's a live album live at Santa Monica. And that was recorded just several days before this show. And it was sold out. And it's considered one of his infamous shows. I think was a documentary film there, I think. So the irony is that in LA, they were more hip to Bowie before San Francisco was. But it was so great. It was so different seeing this kind of stuff at the Winterland at the time. The whole glammy type of thing, Iggy Stardust persona. A fantastic show. And of course, I've been a Bowie fan ever since. I did see him 2 more times, once with 9 Inch Nails.
I saw that tour.
Did you? Yeah.
Was that down at the Shoreline Amphitheater?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I saw that.
That.
Interesting.
And then and I saw one other time, and I can't remember, like in the 80s, and I don't remember what that was. And I'm usually really good at memory, but the Thin White Duke tour, I think I might have saw it with Vernon. Well, I don't remember, but anyway, bright white lights, and it was great. TVC 15, that whole thing. So that's my second.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen him more. That 9 Inch Nails was the only one I saw, and it was interesting about it. I remember was that they were touring together, and they didn't want to have a headliner, so I think they switched off as the tour went on. The one I saw was Bowie opened and did his set. I was like, was that the Scary Monsters maybe album? At any rate, and then as towards the end of his set thing, they transitioned into 9 Inch Nails. they would play another song, and members of Nine Inch Nails would come on and join the band, and Bowie's band would leave. And after, 15, 20 minutes or something, it was Nine Inch Nails and no Bowie.
Right.
So it was
You go
really
off.
interesting. Yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, next, let me go to, this is a joint one that we'll both talk about. Stones, Stevie Wonder, Winterland, 1972. And I'm sure Norman has lots of background on that. But at any rate, they played 2 nights at Winterland, 2 shows per night.
So this is one of my choices, so I'm jumping in with you.
Yeah.
Does that mean you get an extra choice?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think about that. Well, no, I guess not, because then I'd have to go back and, well, we could.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Anyway, two nights, 2 shows per night. Had to line
There was like
up.
a 4 o'clock and an 8 o'clock show.
Yeah.
Now let me give it a little background. Again, Winterland's a small venue, 5,000 people. Why would the Stones at that point play at a small venue? Because it was sort of a makeup thank you for the bullshit of Altamont that happened in '69, where it was such a debacle. So Bill Graham had some clout, and he had the Stones do these 4 shows at Winterland. And I have a picture somewhere of my ticket. I don't have the ticket stuff. $5.50.
Yeah, I have.
Stevie Wonder opened up.
What did I do with
They
it?
started out, didn't they start out with Rocks Off or Rip This Joint? I forgot, but
I do not remember.
you don't know. Of course you don't know.
I don't remember.
I mean, this was a big
Oh, here it
comeback of the Stones. This was a huge deal.
Yeah,
where they
actually,
started making money.
Here's the ticket, actually, $5.
Okay. Mine was $5.50. I don't know why.
Oh,
I had a seat in the side balcony. Did you have a seat or did you stand?
Yeah. And we were looking across because the stage was set up on the side, the long, wide version. And
I
we
have,
got there. My friend and I
photograph-
got there really early so we could get seats. I think this was probably would definitely be the first time I was at Winterland, because this was actually before I moved to San Francisco.
So you and I were possibly.
Yeah.
What were you the
This was
first night?
No, second night, second show.
I was the first night.
Oh, okay. So we weren't there the same.
No, we didn't occupy the same space for another 2 years.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a kind of a landmark show for the reasons Mazzy mentioned about the makeup for Altamont, and people still talk about that a lot, because also Stevie Wonder. I mean, that was before Stevie Wonder was really big. I think maybe
it was right when Superstition.
Yeah,
Talking Book came out, but it hadn't really hit the charts big quite yet. It was just percolating, and of course, he exploded at that point, right?
And that probably didn't hurt either. That he.
Oh no.
He was touring with them, right? He didn't play with them only on this.
No, he toured. He toured.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. My next one is I'm skipping. I'm going a decade later. Oh shit. Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry. Not a decade later. It's funny, that's sort of a weird, tripping of the lips there. But from 1972 to 1977 seemed like eons, right? In those days when we were right.
Oh sure.
So
yeah.
There was a place in North Beach, San Francisco, still there, but I don't know what the temperature is of the place now. The Savoy Tivoli. And the Savoy Tivoli is kind of this like bar club, really a bar. They have pool tables on one side, an outdoor kind of covered little drinking area, a separate bar in the right. We used to hang out a lot in the late 70s, mostly the 80s. You and I hung out there.
Yeah,
we'd go there sometimes before or after we went to the Mabuhay Gardens, and that's another story. I didn't show any new Mabuhay shows.
Well, that
today.
was more 80s, I think. Anyway.
Right. That's true.
No, it was 70s. No, I take that back.
It started in the late.
Yeah,
70s.
yeah, it was definitely 70s.
But I didn't include any Fab Map stuff tonight.
I didn't.
Anyway,
either.
For a short time window, maybe a year at the most, maybe a year and a half, the back room had live shows, and eventually it closed down because the noise was too loud. Neighbors hated the rock and roll, but I did see Robert Palmer there, Southside Johnny there, Jim Carroll there. And in 1976, I'm looking at my calendar, August 22nd, so the day before my birthday, the day before my 22nd birthday, I saw the Ram Ones, the Ramones.
Oh, wow. The Ram ones.
The Ram,
Yeah.
Ram?
Yeah.
Named after Paul Ramon. It was Paul McCartney's fake name he used on some authorship. Anyway.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Interesting thing. I don't know. You weren't with me then, but when I managed the record factory that we both worked on, at one point, a bunch of the managers, they flew us down to LA, went to this one stop. One stop is where you could pull records for your stores, because some of us were complaining that certain titles we couldn't get at the East Bay store. I don't remember all the details, but he flew us down. They picked us up in a limo. Everyone was doing blow in the back of the limo. John Hyatt owned the record factory. It was a small chain. At that point, maybe 7 stores. And we went to this one stop and we hung out the day, and this band comes in, kind of hanging around like an in-store, but at a one stop, and it was Ramones. So we could talk to them. And I don't know why the hell, and I really didn't know much about them then, why I didn't get a signed record, right?
Yeah, really.
They actually talked briefly to Joey. He didn't say much,
right.
You know.
I don't think
this was a great show.
Words.
I think they played like 4 or 5 nights at the Savoy Tivoli.
Wow.
And it was incredible because punk was new, obviously. And it was, in a way, I remember thinking they were almost like just like a fast surf band. I didn't think of them.
Yeah.
I guess they called it punk. I don't even remember.
Sure.
I will show this just because this was a later issue. This is the Roxy, Ramones Live at the Roxy 76. Wow. So this is basically, this is the week before I saw them, this live show.
Is that a bootleg or a regular release?
No, this was, I think this was I believe this was a record store day. This is
okay. Right.
4109 out of 10,000. I mean, it's great. Okay. It's great looking back and thinking like, what did I really hear? You know, the Roxy, one of the great, clubs that I only went to, I think once or twice in LA. But the Ramones at the Roxy. So I'm talking about like my introduction to punk. And then Brooks and I mean, we could go on talking about seeing the Dead Kennedys and Devo at the Fab Mab, and I saw the Damned there and all these other bands. So, but I'm not including them, so they don't count.
Yeah, right. I think I saw the Ramones a couple times. I'd have to look at my list, but I know once it was right at during like the final week of the Winterland, where they like had a whole bunch of great shows lined up, and I saw the one with the Tubes, the Ramones, and SVT. Which was Jack Cassidy's, short-lived sort of rock band.
Punky. He was kind of post-punky.
Kind of punk, yeah, not really punk.
More hard rock.
Yeah, something. Anyway.
SVT played around a lot in the Bay Area.
Yeah, well, I think I saw them another time too. I mean, they weren't great, but I don't know, whatever.
What's better than KBC?
Yeah, I liked that album at first, and then I was living in New York then, and I saw them in New York, and it was okay, I stopped listening to it after a while.
One of my photographers did a photo shoot for KBC, so I spent the day in the studio with Marty Ballin, Jack Cassidy, and Yorma. No, Paul Kantner. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what KBC was. Kantner, Ballin.
They showed up around 10 or 10:30, and the first thing Paul Kantner asked me, he goes, "Here's like $20. Do you mind? Can you find a bottle of vodka somewhere?" So I went to this called Ted's across from the Audi dealership on Howard Street and bought a bottle of vodka.
That's a good story.
It is a good story. They were really nice. They were great, but it was just, anyway. All right, your turn.
Okay, my turn. And this show, it just sticks in my mind for some reason. I don't know that the music was like fantastic. Certainly not all the way through. I wasn't a fan of all these bands, but I do remember it as, at least at that period of time, which was 1972, as the loudest show I ever went to. And I'm sure since then, with better sound systems and stuff, I've seen shows that were louder, but I tend to remember that. And this was, 1972 in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Palladium, and it was Jeff Beck, Argent, and Foghat.
I saw Foghat as an opening act at Winterland. I forgot with who.
Yeah, I guess they were sort of probably known as being opening acts. Well, they did get pretty popular later on, but
I saw ZZ Top as an opening act.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, sure.
Winterland.
Wow.
Yeah,
I never saw them. So yeah, it was a good show. The place was packed, and I just remember it being so loud. And So the only thing I really have to show for it is this album, because the particular edition of the band that I saw at that show was actually a hybrid. He was in the middle of switching the personnel, and so it was, I think it was like three of the guys from this, the drummer, Max Middleton, the keyboard player, and the bass player. Clive Chainman on bass and Cozy Powell on drums, and also Bogart and Appice. So no, it wouldn't have been Cozy Powell. Anyway, from the, became soon after that Beck, Bogart, and Appice. So
I always thought it was a piece. Is it Appice? It is Appice. Probably.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Really.
I don't know. Or a piece. Or a piece, Italian. Someone's going to pronounce it, because I get corrected on my pronunciation. I said a whole thing on George Harrison's estate the whole time, calling it Frere Park, and it's of course Friar Park. And I said Frere Park, so I get all the British linguistics correcting me, rightly so, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not sure how he pronounced it, but anyway, so I do vaguely remember Beck being really good, and the Rough and Ready band might be one of my favorite bands of his. I mean, The Truth and the first album, no, the second album, Beckel, certainly great albums. But this band, and they really only recorded two albums. There's this one, and then the one with the oranges on the cover. But this particular album is really solid. I've always really liked this album.
That reminds me, one of the last shows I saw with you, I can't remember if it was right before I moved from San Francisco to Seattle or after. You and I went to see Jeff Beck, the Masonic Auditorium.
Yeah.
I remember really liking the sound, but even telling you I was really bored.
Yeah.
I mean, he's technically amazing,
mm-hmm.
but he's so amazingly slick in a way. I found he's great, and it's a hard one because I like the guy and I like him, but even to me, Blow by Blow and Wired, I'm not a huge fan of those records. I like that they were big, but after a while I got bored how there's a slickness to them.
Well, also I found too, he changed his style basically with Blow by Blow, and
instrumentals.
He went from being more of a rock blues based guitar player, which he really mastered in his own way, to this sort of pseudo jazz rock kind of, I don't know it, but and I really haven't liked much of his stuff since.
He's an interpreter of things. That's why there's that one album he did about 6 years ago. Is it something Siren or something? Black and white cover. I love it. It's got these two young English women singing. It's almost punky in a way. And I suggest, and I'm blanking out on that name too. A lot of Beck people I read on the forums and places hated it. And it's really, really good. And so something Siren, True. It's got like I forgot, but we'll talk after this, or you look it up, you'll remember.
Yeah,
I think it might be his last newest album. No, there was one he did after that. Really good. I think
I haven't heard any of his
brought these two singers in. Anyway, I'll forget about it.
You haven't really heard any of his newer stuff, particularly.
It's really good.
Kind of sound the same.
It's really good because it's edgy.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Yeah. All right, I'm going with an artist that I first saw in 1975, and even I got a little bored over the years, but he's, to me, is probably, maybe possibly, the best single artist concert I've seen in my entire life. And that was the first time seeing Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run. He was a live performer on another level. 1975, it was Halloween, 1975, at the Paramount Theater in Oakland. And Vernon went, did you go to this?
No. Okay. I don't think I wasn't really into him as much as you guys
were. Well, Vernon kept playing Wild E Street Shuffle. That's the album that I really got into, and then this came out. I love this record. To me, it's his best record. In a way, into the 80s and 90s, I think I saw in the 80s him twice at a stadium, and I didn't get it because I feel really fortunate seeing the Paramount's the old-fashioned like movie palace renovated.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I
theater.
can't, and the next year, October, he returned in 76. I saw him again. And I can't remember if it was 75 or 76. Vernon and I and a couple people drove up to Sacramento and saw the same show like the next night in Sacramento.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember if it was 75 or 76. But then since I'm here, one of the greatest other shows too was, now this isn't the one, but I saw him at Winterland in 78 during those closing shows like you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
One of them, we were our friend Hale Milgram got tickets for David and I, Bacon and I, my Beatle guy. And we sat the front row balcony first, like there's a VIP area there. And we got to meet Bruce backstage after.
Oh, really? Wow.
You know, it was a group of, it was like, you know, backstage after they shower or whatever. And It was like 20 people there. So I got to hang, I didn't really say much. He was just talking, you know, doing the after show meet and greet. But this is from the Roxy 78. So this is very close to that Winterland show. He did, you know, again, he was doing several smaller venues, but Bruce at Winterland, those of you who collect bootlegs and the downloads from, you know, the CDRs that you can get from the Springsteen site will know those shows. And the Paramount Theater 75 and Bruce Springsteen, the most amazing thing, how he trusted his audience when he would fall in the audience. He was the first artist that I saw, aside from like going back to Iggy Pop kind of stuff, that it would carry him. He wasn't like jumping in the crowd. It would carry him like a third of the way out, then back. You know, 3-4 hour shows, right? The only other artists that did that were the Grateful Dead, really, that I remember. But the Grateful Dead didn't have the intensity of Bruce for that 3 or 4 hours. Fantastic stuff. Again, I lost a little interest in the live shows. I just didn't like the big stadium things.
Yeah, I went with you, and I think Bacon at the Oakland Coliseum probably a few years after that, and I'd have to look it up. But
Right.
And I think we had like the last seats in the auditorium, so we were like all the way in the back in the last row.
I think that's where David met his wife.
Oh, really?
I think he was set up. If you're watching, David, you could comment and let me know that.
And it was good, but we were so far back. It was, you know, I had to watch it on the monitors, and it was really hard to get wrapped up in the excitement of the crowd and stuff. So,
you know,
that was one of the last. I think I said to myself after that show, I'm never going to another arena show.
Well,
I think I did go to one or two.
To be honest with you, the Springsteen shows in the late 80s turned me off to concert. I felt fortunate. I feel spoiled because, you know, I mean, I've been to a few since, I mean, here and there, but I'm not a big fan of the big baseball or football stadium shows. I mean,
right. No, it's too much.
I like, you know, Winterland, Fillmore type places, clubs. You know, there are exceptions, obviously, but anyway.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I really avoid pretty much all costs anything larger than a Fillmore size show, because there's something about the intimacy of being in a show. So another reason to try to see bands early on in their careers, or I don't know. I actually was fortunate to see Bruce in 2015, maybe 2017, at South by Southwest in Austin, and he did a show there, and it was in a newly built auditorium. It was not probably half the size of Winterland, and you had to have a special ticket to get in, which we had, and so I got to go stand on the floor, and it was a really good show. You know, it's not, but partly what was made it so good was we were close, you know, and you could see, right, and you didn't have to look at monitors and all that kind of stuff.
He was, and he still is. I mean, I didn't see the live Broadway thing he did, but he is one of the most intimate artists, he talks to his audience, and not that other people don't. He's not the only one, but there's something about him, especially in 1975, when like it was such a shock of the system, such a surprising thing. You know,
he came out of.
No,
go ahead.
I mean, the sound of him playing lead guitars more than, I mean, he was playing all those great lead. I guess he still does, but you know, he's got, I mean, obviously Nils Lofgren with him now. When I saw him, he had little Stevie, and then little Steven left, came back. But incredible showman, incredible artist. I just love that. It was an explosion. So, all right, your turn.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. That was from the South by Southwest show.
Nice.
I don't know if you can see that very well, but anyway, doesn't matter. And yeah, that was 2012. Okay, I got the date wrong. All right. So it's my turn. Let's go with
your turn.
Yes. Since I'm going roughly chronological, let's go with another show that I think we both saw. Maybe not the same show because they played 2 nights at Winterland. Was Traffic, Free, and John Martin. And it was when Traffic, and what goes with that, this goes with that. This live Traffic album was recorded, I think, a few months after in Europe, after these Winterland shows. And it was right after, I guess, Shoot Out the Fantasy Factory, when he brought in these Muscle Shoals musicians to play with the band. So there's Barry Beckett and Roger Hawkins and David Hood, and I think it was along with Jim Capaldi and Chris Wood were still in the band.
That was a great show. In fact,
yeah, it was.
Check this out.
Oh, there you go. Oh, excellent.
That's
cool.
the marquee.
And that's John Martin at the bottom.
And John Martin. There's John Martin there. I took a
Yeah.
bunch of pictures there. I was taking pictures when I could before they banned the camera thing, and I had a 200mm lens, and I brought my camera to a lot of shows until I dropped my lens at a kink show, and
All right.
and it screwed the it was not a twist mount. It was
bayonet.
not a bayonet, but it was a screw mount. And I bent the screws. But this was an all island label show. That's why it was packaged. Right. Free, obviously. Free became, not the main guy was in Bad Company.
Paul Rogers, yeah. And I think the drummer too, wasn't Simon Kirk or something. Anyway, yeah, went on to do Bad Company and other stuff. But I just remember it as really enjoying the show, and it was good, nice seeing him at Winterland, and I hadn't seen Traffic before that either. I wish I had seen it with the original lineup, maybe John Barleycorn or before that, but I didn't. So
that's when they were a little more jazzy then. It was kind of the jazzy, folky thing.
Yeah, and they had these long stretched out tunes where they just did, they would blend into long instrumentals. Not really jams, but I guess they were jams.
Well, it's pretty much like High Heel Boys and Shoot Out the Fantasy Factory. Those 2 albums. Yeah. It's right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's about all I have on that. I'm glad you have that photo or those photos.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't include that, so that didn't count for me. So I didn't include
That's fine.
I was there.
Yeah.
Okay. November 15th, 1977, the old Waldorf. Bill Graham took over the old Waldorf. Now you and I went there a lot.
A lot, yeah.
A lot. We got a lot of free tickets. Well, there's a lot of
80s shows, which we do in 80s.
But even late 70s, we were doing this. 1977. Sure. This artist, KSAN Radio in San Francisco, broke this artist in America. And I was fortunate to go to his very, very first show he ever played in the United States. And that's Elvis Costello.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that was great. I was a little late to him, so you're really lucky.
My aim is true.
Yeah.
This is my original UK copy.
Ooh, nice.
This is a US copy, so.
Wow.
They actually, I think the US version had a lot of different color options, but whatever.
Oh.
And
different tracks on those? Were there different tracks? Aren't there some different tracks between the English and the?
I think they're the same.
Oh, okay.
No, the records. Well, wait a second. Oh yeah, actually, Watching the Detective is on here, but wasn't on. That's on their second album, I think, in the UK. So slightly different track listing. But this was an intense. He was so different, and I think I went with Nancy. Nancy was my girlfriend who worked at KSAN at the time, because Bonnie Simmons was the program director at KSAN Radio. Apparently, that first really broke Elvis. Not that he was this huge hit-making machine, but he was this artist that everyone was talking about. He was like a whole different thing. The angry young man, in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. No, he was, I didn't see him. I unfortunately didn't see him. I think you saw him maybe 2 or 3 times before I did. I eventually saw him, I think, at the Berkeley Community Theater for the first time I saw him.
I saw him at one of those New York shows where he had the big wheel.
Oh, yeah. We didn't
Was
go
that
together.
at the Beacon? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Beacon.
yeah, because I saw that. I think they're also.
He had this big wheel of songs, and you'd turn the wheel, and it would pick the songs they would do with the attractions. I think with Steve Neve or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I think I saw that here in Berkeley or something.
I just happened to be in New York then. I don't.
Yeah.
If it wasn't with you, I don't know who I saw it with.
Because that was only like maybe 10, 15 years ago, wasn't it?
Oh no.
The wheel, thing with the wheel.
No, this was like 80s.
Oh,
early 90s maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
All right. Oh, so it's, I guess, my turn. Oh, okay. I'm going to
think about it, Brooks. Take your time. Think about it. Come up with
good.
something interesting.
I'm going with another group, and I don't necessarily have one particular show. I saw this group 4, maybe 5 times, and they were so different and so intense and just amazing to see. And that would be Mahavishnu Orchestra. And this particular poster was from Santa Barbara with Robbie Basho, which is interesting because he's like sort of Leo Kottke folk guitar. And then, primitive guitar like John Fahey and Sandy Bull. So an interesting contrast there. Listen to that, and then listen to, the groundbreaking Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was to see him live was like a whole different experience. Sometimes a lot of people may not have gotten into him because it's just so fast and loud and stuff, but to see that group, because nothing had been done like that before, as far as I know.
Now talk about that a little more, because some people are going to say, "Oh, he's a jazz artist. He's this artist. We're doing a rock thing." But he's one of the first fusion people.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit beforehand, because I think you really crossed a lot of barriers with that, because at least certainly at that time, other than Miles Davis and a few other artists, jazz was still pretty much acoustic based for the most part. And this electric, really loud, fast. So it's rock or jazz or whatever. And in fact, I did see him. Then I did see him in '73 when he toured with Carlos Santana. And this was just a one-off album, and I think they only did the one tour. And I saw them in Santa Monica, and they had Billy Cobham on drums again, but they also had Larry Young on organ, which I didn't know much about at the time, but became a big fan later, who was essentially certainly earlier on a jazz artist, but he got into electronics probably around this time too, and then he unfortunately sort of died early. But I was glad this would be the only time I saw him, and I'm glad I did. But this show was actually really good too. I don't think it could have lasted, so probably the one album was enough. But
I kind of, it's funny, I don't know, at the time I like that record now. At the time I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't understand it. After Caravan arrived, isn't that right after Caravan?
Oh, right. Yeah, it was after that. Yeah.
Right. When he started doing the fusion jazz stuff, I didn't know it until, like, by the time you and I became roommates. Those of you who know why I call jazz shit Brooks. When we were roommates, we had a turntable. The main stereo was in our living room. We had a 2-bedroom apartment in San Francisco, $225 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And in the morning, whoever got up in the morning would run to the turntable and put on a record. And most of the 2/3 of the time, it seemed, and I could be totally missing this, Brooks put on jazz. And I would say, "Oh, jazz shit. That's all jazz. You're always putting on jazz shit." And of course,
I still do.
Yeah. And Brooks is probably one of the biggest influence in my life of really getting into jazz. And then I got it. And years later, hopefully we'll do a jazz version of this with the Keystone Corner, a lot of the jazz shows we've seen. You've probably seen more, but I went to Keystone a lot too.
That's right.
So that's Jazz Shit Brooks.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and I did actually, just before we get off of this, I did see a show at Winterland, which was a double bill of Jeff Beck and Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I don't remember what edition. I think it was like probably the Wired edition of Jeff Beck with Jan Hammer and stuff. And I think Mahavishnu was already at that point the expanded edition with other musicians and stuff like that. But
well, that was about the time that
was Winterland.
Yeah, I remember getting my favorite album is that one he did. Was it Inner Peace or the almost acoustic? What's it called?
Oh yeah.
My Goals Beyond.
My Goals Beyond, yeah.
Inner Peace. I don't know what that. My Goals Beyond. But then I also got the big one with the composer. George Martin produced that one.
Oh, Wired. No, not Wired. Blow by Blow. He did Blow.
No. I'm talking about. Well, I'm talking about now. John McLaughlin, the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Oh.
Okay. George Martin produced that Mahavishnu record with what's the famous composer? I'm blanking on his name. With the rainbow in the cover, sort of. Not Jean-Pierre Rampal. No, not Michel Jarre. Michael Tilson Thomas, maybe? No. Anyway, it's one of those conductors. It's a very elaborate orchestrative Mahavishnu Orchestra that George Martin produced on Columbia.
Oh,
you know it if you see it.
I don't have it. I probably know if I saw it. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So, all right. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this group, because it's probably the one group I saw more than any other group in the 1970s. There's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert. I probably saw the Grateful Dead 10 times at Winterland alone. I first saw the Dead in 68, and then it went on and on. I kind of jumped off for a while in the late 70s when the whole punk thing was happening. I was getting a little bored. Then I saw them again around 89. That was the last time I saw them. But two shows in particular. I mean, there are many, and you Deadheads will know, and you'll say that, oh my God, November 23rd, Bertha at the Shoreline Shoreline didn't exist. I know, don't fuck with me here. Was their version of Bertha. They went into New Rider, or they went into I Know You Rider, and that solo that Jerry did was slightly off key too, all that. Anyway, New Year's Eve, 71, 72, and New Year's Eve, 72, 73, I went to. And right sandwiched in the middle of that is Europe 72 album. Of course, this is a fantastic record. It sounds great. I mean, part of it is overdubs up the yin yang of better vocals and instrumentation. So they're actually sounding in tune, which is kind of rare for the Grateful Dead. I mean, and their vocals are actually on key. I love the Grateful Dead, but these New Year's Eve concerts were amongst the best shows I went to. So 71, 72, New Year's Eve, 72, 73. And Bill Graham would come like with a diaper dressed up as the baby New Year's Eve person on some kind of wire across at midnight. I
was at that 72, 73 New Year's Eve show too before I moved here. So that's interesting. And I was going to put the Dead in here, but I was really into the Dead for maybe like a 5 or 6 year period there in the middle 70s. I didn't get into them in the 60s, and then I had a roommate in college who was really into the Dead, and I finally got it. I didn't really get it at first. And so then I went through this period. I saw them a whole bunch of times, 5, 6, 7 times, maybe in the middle 70s. And that New Year's Eve show was actually the first time I saw them.
It's hard to describe. People either love the Dead or they don't get the Dead. They don't understand it. Right. And I totally I totally get that.
Yeah.
But and to me, they're the two studio albums, 70. Obviously, Working Man's Dead, and the other country one, American Beauty, are amongst my favorite albums, and it's almost like non-representative of what the Dead were before and after, in a way. But at a show when they were happening, I mean, you were immersed in their jam things. Some of them were unbelievable, like getting into some jazz stuff.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how they would morph into these songs. And again, I've never tried to turn people onto the Dead. And sometimes it takes a while and sometimes they just get totally turned off, which I get, you know, but I love that stuff. So I had included.
Yeah, I've kind of worked beyond, I don't know. I don't listen to them much anymore, but there was that period where, yeah, I would see them multiple times, either up here in Santa Barbara and I think before I moved here, I'd have to look it up. I went to that test they did of that gigantic sound system.
Oh, I saw that at the Cow Palace.
At the Cow Palace, yeah.
I went to that too. They did the giant.
Yeah, it was like unbelievable. And then I think I saw that set up again.
Stanley Owsley.
Down in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, Stanley Owsley, that system, the mega system, yeah.
Yeah, that was, and what was interesting about it wasn't that it was loud, it was just really clean.
It was amazing.
Like, yeah, it really was.
Did you ever see the sketch of that? You know, almost like an architectural sketch of that sound system. It's friggin' amazing.
I think I did. Did I send that to you? I think there was somebody actually recreated it in miniature recently.
Oh, you did send that to me. There was an article. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
People had a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to another one. Another artist I've seen multiple times, so I don't think I can pick one in particular. But that would be Frank Zappa. And I think the first time I saw him was in Los Angeles, UCLA Poly Pavilion in 1971. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was the show that they recorded another band from LA at. And I went with
the Mud Shark.
Yeah.
Edgewater Hotel.
Well, no, that's Fillmore.
Oh, never mind.
But they probably did it because it was right at the same time.
Howard Kale and Mark Bolan were on the trip.
Yeah, Ainsley Dunbar on drums, and some of the other usual suspects. So, and I went with a friend who hated it, so it kind of soured my appreciation of the show. It was probably better than I remember it. But I did see him other times. I saw him in '74 at Robertson Gymnasium at UC Santa Barbara, where I saw a lot of shows there. Actually, it's funny thinking back, seeing all these bands in a college gymnasium, but they put on lots of shows there.
Great sound in a gymnasium.
Yeah, it wasn't obviously.
Exactly.
But I know my first concert ever, the Jimi Hendrix show in '68 or whatever, that was Robertson Gymnasium. So I saw, and anyway, that particular show was very good. It was the George Duke years, and it was recorded right about the same time as Roxy and Elsewhere, which is one of my favorite Zappa albums. It's just really well done, and like a lot of Zappa stuff, it's a lot of edited. He would always edit his live stuff, so you can't really tell it necessarily, but
that's probably influenced a lot by Bitches Brew, where they just would jam and show all the stuff and edit it all together, or
it's possible. It's a Fillmore. Yeah. So and I saw him several times. Well, I don't know, several times, but a few times after that. But needless to say, it was amazing to see Zappa and all the people he surrounded himself with in those bands. And yeah, that's about George. And one of the reasons I like that particular era of Zappa is that he was with George Duke, the keyboard player, and I think he was actually, an influence on Zappa in many ways, and they worked so well together and created some really amazing music.
Okay, I saw, hold on, I got to find this here. I only saw Zappa once at Winterland. When I saw him, it was 73 or 4.
Oh, wow. Pictures. Nice.
And it was when Jean-Luc Ponty was playing with him. Jean-Luc Ponty, obviously a French violin player. Let's see. That's the only time I saw Zappa. So it's great. I think maybe either Foghat was on that,
yeah,
or Mike Bloomfield. I always forget which show. I don't have the list in front of me of that. So okay, I'm going to jump into a band that I saw 2.5 times. And how can you see a band 2.5 times? Well, I saw them in 1969. The only time I went to the Fillmore West, I saw the Tommy perform Who at the entire Who.
Wow, the entire Tommy.
The entire Tommy.
Wow.
So
that's a band I never saw and really wish I had seen.
The Who?
And yeah, I don't know why I didn't. I really should have, and I really wish I'd seen them while Keith Moon was still in the band too. Well, so
I'm going to start out the concert, the main concert. I'm going to mention two shows.
Yeah.
But there's a trivia question. Do you know who Scott Halpin was?
Oh, was he the drummer?
The drummer. He's the Who's stand-in drummer. Now the Who were touring Quadrophenia, right? Quadrophenia. I think an over-bloated album with some good stuff, could have been a single album. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, everyone loves this record. People think, to me, and I said this many times on my channel, this and The Wall are albums that are over-bloated that should have been scaled back. But they're amongst the most popular albums of both Pink Floyd and here. So the Cow Palace, the Who plays, and it's a famous story. Jet lag Keith Moon basically passes out twice after only a half hour, 40 minutes at the most into the thing. And at one point after the second time he passed out, I believe, and I was with my friend Larry, who I grew up with, who's a drummer, but we were way in the back of the Cow Palace. And at one point, Pete Townsend said, "Are there any drummers in the audience?" And Larry and I started kind of moving forward, but we were so far back, and this guy gets up. His name is Scott Halpin, and he played drums. I don't know how, with the Who for maybe a half hour. I don't even know all the details, but a major cock up. And it was like, it was actually a fun experience. I didn't even feel ripped off. I don't remember even thinking about getting a refund or being pissed off. It was like, to me, that's like fucking rock and roll. I mean,
right. That's part of that. I mean, yeah, you just have to appreciate that it happened.
Yeah. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
Going ahead in 19.
So that's the half show? Is that the half show?
That's the half show.
Oh, okay.
1976, Bill Graham again works his wheeling and dealing thing and books the Who. I think 2 nights. I think it was only 2 shows at Winterland. Again, the Who were paying stadiums by then, and so having the Who play at Winterland in 1976, they were touring this album.
Huh.
Give me a break. Squeezebox, really, Pete? But it was a friggin' great show. He was on fire, Pete, with his guitar playing. It sounded great. It was tight, and it was a great place to see him at Winterland. Yeah. And kind of a deal to play San Francisco again to make up for 3 years earlier, or whatever it was, the major screw up at the Cow Palace. So
how come I didn't go to that? We would have been really.
I don't even know who I went with. I don't remember who I went with. I remember being at the shows, but not always who I went with, except now we're going to have at the end of this a bonus show that we both attended, but wait for that.
Number 11. Yeah. Okay. I guess we're already over an hour here. We should move it up. I'm going to do another one, and it's not because it was such a fantastic show for performances, and even the experience of being there wasn't the best, but just for the collection of artists. And that would be Bill Graham production in 1975. There was a benefit for school after school programs. Yeah, the snack concert.
I was there,
and I don't remember what that stands for exactly, but it was cold and foggy, and but the list of bands, I mean, you just can't not include it, because you've got, and I'll go bottom, well, on the way the bill was bottom to top, they had Eddie Palmieri opened, then they had Graham Central Station, and then Grateful Dead, and then Tower of Power, and then Santana, and then the Doobie Brothers, and then Joan Baez, and then the Jefferson Starship, and then Neil Young, and then the band, and then Dylan came out and played with the band. So
you forgot one.
I might have. Who?
Marlon Brando.
Oh, right. That's right. Marlon Brando came out and read some poems or something. I don't remember. Oh, that's right. Oh, wow. And I'm sure there were other people that talked too. I wonder if was Getty there?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember
that show. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole thing could have been better, but when you have something like that, it's you don't know what. But just seeing all those people in one event was just pretty amazing, really.
That was one of those shows that it seemed it should have been better, and it seemed
right.
Glad we went, but it wasn't a great concert.
Right. That's what I was saying.
I remember the timing of the between acts was off, and it was not, and that's really that's unusual.
It's kind of a last minute thing too, because I think he had trouble getting the venue, or there was some problems with scheduling.
Well, I don't remember which was first, because that's where Led Zeppelin played, and supposedly they weren't going to Led Zeppelin after that. They stopped doing shows, or maybe Led Zeppelin was after that. I did see that.
I don't know why I didn't see that either.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about that, but I'm not sure when Zeppelin was. Yeah. This was March '75, and actually,
the one concert that
I do have a ticket for that.
You do.
Yeah.
I got a freebie for that, which I feel guilty for, because it was a benefit and I got a free ticket.
Yeah. Well, it was only $5, so.
Well, $5.
It was more than it is now, but even so,
It's funny. Talk about shitty concerts. I didn't include it, but I almost did, just because that'll be in my elongated one. Was the Sex Pistols at Winterland. Famous show, and they were terrible, so I didn't want to include it.
Okay, your turn.
All right, I'm going to 1974. An artist that I always wanted to see, and I hadn't seen ever until this show, because he hadn't been playing around for how many years, and that is Sir Bob himself, Bob Dylan.
Sir Bob.
Not Sir Bob.
Yeah, you have some good pictures from that, if I remember.
Yeah. 1974, band, right? Bob Dylan and the band played the Oakland Coliseum, did a major tour that Bill Graham produced.
So that was the year before Snack Sunday. Just a year before that.
Yeah. But he hadn't, the only show he had played since his motorcycle stuff in the late 60s was he played the concert for Bangladesh in 71, and he hadn't toured. And earlier that year, this album came out, Planet Waves. This is his debut when he switched from Columbia to Asylum Record, David Geffen's label. The band backed him up. I like this record. It's a little loose and funky, but I really like this record. And just to give you a little context, the latest album the band had was this, Juke Joint. This is their band of cover songs, which a lot of people don't like. I think it's an interesting novelty. But, and then of course, after the fact, at the end of the year, Asylum put out this Bob Dylan, the band, after the flood, or before the flood, during the flood. This is the first time I recall everyone doing the lighter thing. I could be wrong about that, but everyone holding their lighters up, or their matches, or whatever they did. And what's great about this was, Dylan does an acoustic set, electric with the band. Dylan's on fire. He's like yelling, you go, I go, mine, that kind of thing. The band does their own set. It's a fantastic show. And I saw just one of, I say one or two. I think I only saw one of them, but 1974, the band.
Where was that recorded? Or was that just a general
tour?
This
one I think was recorded at different venues.
Okay, all right. I thought I remember that it wasn't that good. That everyone was waiting for it, and then it was kind of a letdown. But I guess
the album.
Yeah,
I liked the album.
No. I'm not. I mean, you know more about it.
I think because I love Dylan so much, and I saw the show. It was a fiery record. I mean, some people didn't like the way he was yelling and screaming his acoustic set. I love it, but
Yeah, no.
Some people say I like everything, and I have no taste, and I love everything. I make excuses, but fuck them.
All right, I've got one that's totally off the wall, but
is this your last?
No, I have two more.
Okay.
And wait a minute, there we go. Yeah,
on the floor, Brooks has CDs and maps and posters on the floor.
Yeah, right, exactly. And anyway, so I saw this artist 2 or 3 times at least, but this one is just because everything about it, where it was, who he was, and this is 1976. And it's Captain Beefheart at the Keystone Corner, which, as we've mentioned several times, Keystone Corner was a North Beach jazz club, probably one of the best jazz clubs in the country, certainly at the time. And
I saw that. Did I see it with you? I saw it.
Maybe you might have. You might have. Yeah.
I saw. I think I saw him at the music hall too.
Oh, really? Okay. I saw him with Zappa once at Winterland. He opened for Zappa, so that was probably the tour when they did that. I'm blanking out the name of that album. The one they did together.
The one where he's sitting with his hat like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably saw him one other time. But anyway, that was just the experience of not only seeing him in such a small venue. This place is tiny, probably held, 200 people maybe,
if
at
that.
the most. Yeah. And it was, so it was like I say, everything about it was great. Just being in a different place like that, the size of the place, just seeing him anyway, because as well known as he is, I don't think he necessarily drew big crowds for anything, just because the music was hard for people to understand, even though once you get into it, it really isn't that hard. It's really bluesy and stuff. But at any rate,
it's like bluesy beat poetry at times.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, yeah, he was definitely an interesting character. And there was this is an interesting collection. I doubt that it's still around, but
I have the vinyl version of that. It's great.
Oh, yeah, it's his Warner Brothers albums. Let's see, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 Warner Brothers albums, and another album of outtakes. So it's a nice packaging. I'm sure that the vinyl is equally well done.
Okay.
So that's
again, one more. I said remiss, or I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Grateful Dead, but I'd remiss if I didn't include, in the 70s, it was a big friggin' deal to see the Beatles, to see one of the Beatles or two of the Beatles. I'm skipping that 1974. George Harrison's Dark Horse tour is somewhat of a debacle because his voice was trashed. I saw 2 of those shows and it was great. So I'm not counting those. Don't include that as a number. The Dark Horse, HOARSE tour. Oh my God.
I'm not listening.
Okay. Okay. But in 1976, Paul McCartney, Wings, 1970, major tour. I saw 2 shows at the Cow Palace. I went both nights.
I went with you to the second one.
You went with one night. You went me with one night.
I think the second night, I think.
I don't remember what order. And I took this girl I met who was working at a Barrett's Irish pub that I just met, which was really a waste.
Yeah.
That's another story. This album had come out. I didn't love this. I didn't like silly love songs. I thought it was a piece of shit, but there's some good stuff on here. But Wings sounded fabulous. That's when they first started doing the lasers of Live and Let Die. I also, the following week, flew down to LA with Mr. Bacon, Beatle Bacon, and we saw him at the Inglewood Forum again. So I saw 3 of these shows, 1976. And of course, then they put out, Wings Over America with an acoustic
that was from
thing. This is 3 record set. Hypnosis cover. This is a UK import version of it. You can see a little import sticker. English.
Yes, it is.
It was so great. Some people might think it's dated now in a way, but I tell you, Paul was in fine form. This is where he really all of a sudden solidified. Obviously, Band on the Run really put him over the top as a solo artist, and then Venus and Mars, and then this. But he was great. I've seen him probably 15 times.
Wow.
Years.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had a friend later on in years in the 90s who was a president of Capitol Records, and every time McCartney would tour, he'd send me posters. He'd say, he's on this tour, where do you want tickets? And a couple times I saw him at Berkeley. I saw him at LA at the in Anaheim Stadium. And Hale, this guy would put me on the list and stuff. So I'd get to see him a lot then. But it was a great show. Of course, I was 22 years old. seeing one of the Beatles, I mean, it was pretty amazing. And I remember how emotional it was seeing a Beatle in person. You know, even the messed up George Harrison, just to see him there, you know, so close was great. So
Yeah, no, I remember that show. It was fun. It was really good. Yeah, I'm glad I saw him too. It's the only time I ever saw him. So
Foghat didn't open up for him.
no, I don't think
there was
anybody did. I looked at that. I was thinking putting it on my list just because it's McCartney.
But you knew I would. You knew I would.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I wasn't sure because you've seen so many, different things like that. But that definitely makes sense. But yeah, that was okay. My last one is very controversial between Mazzy and me, and you already know half of it because on one of my top lists is the Sex Pistols at Winterland.
I
think it was. First of all, I enjoyed it. Massey didn't.
They were terrible. They were terrible.
That's okay. That was the whole thing. And not only was it, it was sort of a seminal tour with controversy. They played in New York, and then they played a bunch of.
It was the only
South
tour. It was the
they
only.
Went in the South, and then they played their last. It turned out to be their last show ever with that lineup. Was this show at Winterland, and it was like noisy, and people were throwing stuff, and it was like everything you read about. That was the early years of punk, 1978, and it was like. I thought it was a great experience, and the Avengers and the Nuns both opened up, who were really good local punk bands. So that's definitely memorable, and that would be.
And
a
then
good
remember,
and that was Winterland. Don't remember if I mentioned.
I was in the studio at Ksan for a little while when Sid Vicious came to Ksan to do the interview, and he was a really obnoxious bastard.
Sure, of course.
Because he was on Sean Donahue's show after Nancy.
Oh yeah.
Nancy was after him. I forgot what the deal was.
Yeah, I would expect him to be obnoxious, and he was probably like wasted for one thing, but.
Oh yeah, but you're right. It's an iconic show, and I'm glad I went. It's great story, but it was terrible. It was terrible.
No, it was good. It was great.
So we could talk about the Dead Kennedys, all the great punk shows we did see. I probably saw the Dead Kennedys 8 or 9 times because they were playing a lot. And I saw X.
X.
I almost included X.
Yeah, I saw them a bunch. Maybe not until No, I must have seen. I don't know.
Anyway, and we saw XTC together. Remember that?
Yeah. There was a ton of things I left off my list just because I couldn't Devo at the Mabuhay, you mentioned that, which was actually 1 week before the Sex Pistols show.
What?
It was Devo at the Mab was 1 week before the Sex Pistols show.
Wow, that was a great show.
Yeah, seeing them in that small place.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. That was good.
And that was their first tour, I'm sure.
At least on this, coming to San Francisco, I think.
Yeah.
They had a good buzz because I had their single, the indie single, before the Warner Brothers picked it up. Was it Satisfaction or Mongoloid or?
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Could have been Satisfaction.
It might. Yeah. I have a bunch of those singles still. 45.
Yeah. I still have a couple of those. I have a couple of Sex Pistols singles too. And I don't have anything to show because I only have the Sex Pistols stuff on vinyl, and didn't mention it before, but all my vinyl's boxed up in the closet because I don't have room for it.
I should have brought that out as a prep, but I didn't bring. I have my original UK of that, but I'm going to show one more record before we show our bonus, just to sneak this in, and that is Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Oh.
I saw them twice, but this was the album that I saw them first on this tour, 1975, July 75, at a tiny venue called the Boarding House.
Wow.
In San Francisco.
Oh, I can remember that now.
And I actually saw them also at the Paramount Theater 2 or 3 years later. But this was the first album they did after Sly and Robbie left the band. But he was great. I think that probably holds 200 people, maybe.
The Boarding House?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, it was small. Yeah.
It was great because also I saw Patti Smith there and the Talking
Oh, really?
Heads. Emmylou Harris's first tour there. That would be a whole thing just on the Boarding House. That was one of those clubs. it opened up as the board. It's an older venue, and this guy Dave Allen is his name, who was the producer there. And I think he opened it as the boarding house in 1971. It closed in 1980. But they at the end they had a lot of sort of new wave type of artists there. I think they really broke a lot of young comedians like Robin Williams, Steve Martin, like really got a thing going there. And at the end of Steve Martin,
Split ends.
We saw Split Ends there. They did an in-store at our store. We saw Split Ends there.
Yeah, they came into our store and there was nobody in the store, but they did it anyway.
And these were the days where Brooks and I and a lot of us were getting free tickets to the shows plus a bar tab. And of course, we ordered the most expensive bottle of wine, which seems kind of weird at the time now. It was like this big crock of Liebfraumilch milk.
Yeah. And
Sweet
it wasn't because we liked
crappy
it. It wasn't because we necessarily liked it, but it was just the most expensive thing.
It was.
Yeah.
So we get free. That's when record companies would they would give you tickets and liquor you up. They finally, after a few years, stopped to cut off the bar shit. It was great.
Don't you have an autographed copy of that first album that they signed at the in-store?
The Split Ends.
Yeah.
I have a copy of Split Ends, the American version of that with the pink cover. Mental Note. It's called Mental Notes, and I have a signed copy of the whole band. And some of them later became Crowded House. It's the
the Finn brothers.
Yeah, the Finn brothers. Okay, we're going to end up with like probably the major event of the 1970s, a major concert of the 1970s. Brooks is going to start out talking about it. It became a great documentary. So, Brooksy?
Well, okay. You all know it. We all know it. Everybody knows it. It's the Last Waltz. And so, as everyone knows, this was 1976, November 25th, 3 days. Well, it was Thanksgiving Day.
It was Thanksgiving, and they actually had Thanksgiving dinner there, which we missed. But we got there, they were taking the tables down.
But that's okay. I mean, there's really a lot to say about it that hasn't already been said, but it was certainly the little preview to it was I had never seen the band before, and I finally realized I probably should see them, and they announced a tour, and I think I bought a ticket or was going to buy a ticket and they were going to play at Winterland, and then all of a sudden words started coming out that this was going to be it was going to be their last show, and they were working with Bill Graham to like put something special together. And as the weeks went by, you started hearing more and more about these artists that were going to be there, and how could you not go? So I don't remember if I already had a ticket or what, but I get the feeling that I had a ticket, and then you could trade it in and pay a little extra. I think it was $25 for a ticket for that show.
It was $25. And they didn't announce the artist. It was a rumor who was.
Oh, right. They never did, did they? But we were pretty sure about some of them anyway. But
of course we heard it was if you haven't seen the documentary, the Scorsese concert film, you got to see it. It's one of the most amazing. And obviously they did overdubs and they fixed a lot of it later. But you got Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Muddy Waters, Ringo Starr sort of, and Ronnie Wood sort of. You got Eric Clapton, you got Neil Diamond, which was sort of funny. Van Morrison, Emmylou. Oh, actually, Emmylou and the Staples weren't there. They're in the movie version at the end studio. But Neil Young, the whole infamous story that had to like literally hand etch out just before digital retouching a big glob of coke in the nostril of Neil Young, frame by frame by frame by frame.
Wow.
And that $25, we had a good friend, Vernon, just got really pissed off and said, I wouldn't pay $25. That would an outrage and stuff. It did include Thanksgiving dinner and all the sets, the lighting. If you see the chandeliers, all the stuff, the set design were props from the San Francisco Opera House.
Oh, right.
And they had people like Michael McClure poetry readings in between.
Pearl and Getty.
And then special get. It was an amazing. amazing show.
Yeah. There really was an event, because not only for all those reasons, but they got, Martin Scorsese was filming it in those days. Filming, sort of a theatrical way of filming a rock concert, was either had never been done or only tried a few times.
I
Because
think
they
they
had
actually
film cameras
shot
on dollies going back and
They
forth.
I think they shot it 72 millimeter or 65 or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a handheld, stuff like Woodstock or or even
Yeah.
Bangladesh or something.
And I guess Scorsese did it because he was sort of in a down period, right? He wasn't really the big name that he became later on. So this was
right. But he is, if you look at his
Yeah.
films, he's such a music lover, so it was perfect for that, But one of the great shows we went to, you and I and Bacon, Mr. Bacon went to it. So what a great decade.
Yeah.
We were so lucky.
Yeah. And like I say, I had 250 shows I went to. When you think about that's like 2 shows a month, really, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like you said, a lot of times we go to like 3 or 4 shows a week, just because we had free tickets, or it was, $5 or $3 maybe at the time. And what the hell, why not?
And I love that Brooks and I, for older guys, we still go to shows together when we can.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone to the Chapel, a couple of things, Hair on Oblivion and some things there.
Yeah.
Ry Cooter, which is obviously, we saw him again.
Dream Syndicate up in Seattle.
Dream Syndicate in Seattle, Tractor Tavern. I've seen the Stadies.
Small place. That place holds like 100. Tractor holds like 100 people or something, right? 150 maybe. It's a bar, really, with a little tiny room on the side.
Yeah, we're really fortunate enough, and that's one of the reasons when I decided to leave San Francisco, moving to Seattle, it's such a great music town. I have to be near some music. So and the last show I saw, 2 shows before the lockdown, before in 2020, I went to San Francisco, went to Oakland. I saw Van Morrison at Yoshi's in a blues jazz club.
Oh, wow. I didn't know. I don't remember that.
Morrison, where he's doing more blues, but he's still fabulous. And the last show I saw here was X, and they were almost as good as they were, 40 years ago or whatever it was. X, original 4 lineup of X. So, punk band, LA, great punk band.
Yeah, last time I saw him was 2008, which again was like way past their prime, but they were, like you said, they were still really good. I mean, it sounded the same as they did in 1978.
And you go every year you were going to South by South every year. Now you go to Big Ears Festival in Knoxville.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just love Brooks again, and I trade off new bands and new artists and new things. And, it's not all just fucking Pink Floyd or Bruce Springsteen or, that shit. How many times do you have to buy like Dark Side of the Fucking Moon? I love it. it.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to wind up there. Mazzy loves you, and I really appreciate you watching. Maybe we'll continue this if you like it. Write your comments below. And no, people ask me this. Jazz Shit Brooks does not have his own channel now. Who knows? Maybe he will someday. But otherwise, he'll just be a continuing guest on Mazzy's music here. Right?
Right. Bye.
All right. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I think we're recording. Hold on.
Well, you can cut it, can't you, at the end or something, or no? Oh, maybe you can.